This podcast is brought to you on Roku and Fire TV by Pod Nation Podcast TV. Find us on X, Facebook, Instagram, or wherever podcasts are broadcast. Download our app and never miss a show with video on demand as well as exclusive content found only on Pod Nation TV. Live from Seoul, South Korea, it's The Monster Island Film Vault, episode 85, Godzilla, the series Monster Wars, featuring the Cel Cast. Hello, Kaiju Lovers, and welcome to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast seeking entertainment and enlightenment through tokusatsu. I am your host, Monster Island's film curator, still out in the field, Nate Marchand. Yes, Jimmy, we have made our first major move in our little world tour. We have gone from Hong Kong now and moved a little bit west. We are now in South Korea because we've got actually quite a few kaiju to catch in South Korea. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how they got as many as they did over here, but some of them they kind of stole. I'll explain later. Anyway, before we get into any of the South Korean kaiju, we've got some Godzilla Redux to talk about. I told you the last two episodes, Jimmy, we're not doing Destroy All Monsters right now because reasons. But we have a worthy substitute and worthy host to talk about this worthy substitute. It is the animated host of the Cel Cast, including my former Henshin Men temp co-host, Drew Dodgen and Jacob Heron. How's it going, fellas?
Hey, man. Yeah, we're doing good here. How you doing, man?
Yeah. It's been fun. It's a little cramped here in Uber Mogra in the mobile studio. I kind of miss KIJU. I will admit that. And I have to share.
I'm not sure your air conditioner's working in here, though.
Yeah. Jimmy, you might want to take a look at that. I know it's way down on your laundry list of things to fix about this. You know what, Jimmy, I'm going to cut you off right there. I get it. You don't like Uber Mogra as much as Mechanicon Mark II, but maybe when we get back to the island, you can finally fix it. Jeez. You guys missed out. I'm just telling you.
It happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Well, and the other thing is that it's a little cramped around here. Jimmy's testing out a new mic, and it still sounds weird when he talks into it. He brought his girlfriend along for this trip. It's a little crowded here in Uber Mogra's head. Dealit.
Dealit says, "Oh, so that's why he hasn't hit on me yet."
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. He, like Jimmy said, he is a lot of things, but a cat apparently is not one of them.
Good for you, Jimmy.
Yeah. Although his girlfriend's a Zillia woman, so. Yeah,
interesting,
fascinating.
Yeah, he dug her out of a Zillion saucer that got shipped over to the island. She didn't have a name, so he gave her a name.
Oh,
yeah, her name is Kaguya.
That's a cool name.
Yeah, and if you know your Japanese fairy tales, it actually makes weird sense.
I may have to look that up later. But anyhow,
Tale of the Bamboo Cutter. You've probably seen it. It's been adapted into a bunch of stuff throughout Japanese culture, including anime.
I'm sure it has, but it doesn't hit me like say the Monkey King does. So,
well, that's Chinese because Journey to the West.
Yeah, but Japan uses that also.
Oh yeah, they do. But anyway, how'd you guys get here? It's not the island, so how'd you get to South Korea?
We were going to take the Frog Zord like we did last time.
Yeah, yeah.
But when we got out to where it was being stored, apparently it had melted.
Melted?
Soup, anybody?
Yeah, I'm not sure how it melted. Dealit, what did you ever figure that out? It's because it was hardened light. How does that work?
Huh?
Don't ask you. You're from the future. You got all this technology. You ought to know stuff. Anyway,
AIs, right? Yeah.
If she's not buying this,
you don't know either. Oh, jeez.
We're just lucky she hadn't turned Jacob into a dog yet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about
I'm just
those.
looking around. It's like, what's going to happen now?
Yeah, I've heard about those. I'm
Anyway.
glad you were decidedly less furry today.
Yes. Be like, I don't have to tell her anything yet.
Yeah.
Yet.
Thankfully, however, unlike the first time when we teleported to Monster Island, since whatever caused that mishap was apparently centered on Monster Island and not on Uber, where we are now,
Yeah,
the
Korea,
teleporter
South
actually
Korea.
worked correctly this time.
Yes.
Yeah, which is good.
Well, I mean, mostly correctly. I mean,
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys have better luck with teleporters than I do. Just saying.
I thankfully Jimmy did pick us up out of the ocean when we came in underneath you.
Yeah. Oh, today or
Yeah, today,
today you landed in the ocean.
right underneath you.
Oh, okay. I was away. I'm confused. It's like we're not in the ocean.
Sorry, I forget. Whatever the Sea of Japan or whatever Korea calls it, because they won't call it the Sea of Japan. Whatever that body of water between South Korea and Japan.
Are you a little confused, Drew? Because we're in Seoul.
We landed in water. This is all I know. Okay. We didn't get picked up by
Oh, we hadn't parked yet. Okay, fine, sure.
I don't know where he picked us up. All I know is we were treading water for a hot minute. Thankfully, Deela was able to get us some dry clothes.
Yes.
That is very good. That is very good because I don't know how rust resistant Uber Mogura is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
We at least got, at least we were, the X and Y axis were correct. The Z axis, Deela still has to work on.
Yeah, of course she does.
At least I didn't land on my head this time.
Ow.
Yeah.
Ow. There's a joke there.
Anyway.
Do I say it? Do I say it, Jimmy? Good idea. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. So, yes, Godzilla Redux. But it's not Destroy Monsters. We're talking about what I think is a worthy substitute for it, which is why you guys are here, because it's animated.
Yay!
I feel like you've got the little pigeonholed on this show. Like anytime I do something animated, I call you.
Like any other show we've guest hosted on, we've not gotten pigeonholed.
Because we're the animation guys.
We're the cartoon guys. No one else realizes we can actually review live action stuff.
Yeah.
Unless I ask people to give me live action stuff.
Cartoony zany dudes.
Well, I mean, you guys are quite animated. I'm just saying.
Very true.
We tried.
I don't know.
I mean, Drew, you got to break out of the mold a little bit. You came on Henshin Man as a temp co-host.
Yes, but Tokusatsu it's very close to puppetry in terms of how it works, and we do include puppetry as a part of our definition of animation.
So roundabout way it kind of fits in again.
Yeah,
it's just an excuse to talk about the Muppets. I know
that's all it was. I'll admit. I will admit that's all that was. Because that first Christmas, it's like, oh, we need to talk about Christmas movies. Well, I have no idea how long this show is left, so I'm going to put my favorite Christmas movie on here. Get it out of the way while I can. Otherwise, I'll never get to review it on an actual podcast. So,
Muppet Christmas Carol?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Though I may put it back on the list once an anniversary season cut comes out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
With putting the song, the missing song back in.
Well, it's on Disney Plus.
Right. Yes, but I want it on Blu-ray.
It kind of is.
I'm aware of that version. I want my full widescreen version. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I totally.
But we made it. I don't know. That came out at a time we couldn't get it on there. Anyway.
Anyway, we're talking about Godzilla the series Monster Wars, which I found out through my research. The filmmakers working on this show. This is also the third episode where we have talked about this series, and you guys have been on for 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
But they did want to call this 3-parter Destroy All Monsters, and Toho said no ho.
This I get.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because they didn't want people to be confused.
Interestingly enough, though, when I was doing my research, I found out there was a Game Boy Color game based on this 3-parter.
Really?
Yes. There were 2 Game Boy Color games based on the show, and I have the first one. And I missed out on the second one, and now it goes for a pretty penny.
Yeah. I don't have either one, but I found
weird
it 'cause
games.
I was looking up, I was trying to look up, an easy to edit synopsis for later on. And I brought up the wrong Monster Wars article first. I'm reading through the synopsis going, this is not what happens in this movie, in these episodes.
What did you pull up?
It was on Wikizilla. It started close, but then it kept going off into what I'm assuming were filler.
That's a lot of fish.
That is a lot of fish.
I'm friends with Nick Totopoulos. He's sick of people saying that to him.
I am sure he is.
Because he's like, I never said that. That's just a Matthew Broderick line.
Well, he may not have actually said it, but it's one of the most quotable lines in the film.
Yeah.
So it's going to get said.
I mean, I'm not going to argue with you there. But
and what else we're going to say? Hey, you're the worm guy.
Yeah.
He's okay with that because he says that's actually true.
Anyway.
But speaking of synopsis, would you like to let everybody know what the synopsis is of these? It's a 3-part episode.
Yes.
I thought about finding the back cover copy of the standalone DVD that this got years ago, but I trusted you guys to find what you needed.
I got mostly and had to make some edits, but we'll still.
All right. Jimmy, make sure you loop in some epic music for this. Hit us with it, Drew, or Jacob, whichever.
As tensions threaten to break up the Heat team for good, several major problems arise. A giant bat is terrorizing the countryside of Nigeria. The U.S. military has dredged the alien vessel Leviathan from the bottom of the Pacific. And worst of all, the aliens have taken over the minds of the Leviathan survivors, including Dr. Elsie Chapman. And an army of mutations are under their control, including Crustaceous Rex, Giant Mutant Bee Queen, Huge Mutant Rat, and El Gusano Gigante. Their plan? To conquer the Earth!
Of course!
From their secret base on Isle de Diablo, the aliens have assembled their forces. Heat desperately fights against them, but they are easily captured. Once they are brought to the aliens, they are told that the mutation army, including a brainwashed Godzilla Jr., will be used to attack major cities across the world in preparation for a full-scale invasion of Earth. At its head marches the aliens' ultimate weapon, Cyber Godzilla, a reborn cyborg version of the first Godzilla. As the aliens and their mutation allies attack Earth, Heat escapes captivity. They battle to defeat the alien onslaught and free the mutations from their control to help humanity fight back and save the planet from the alien evil!
Oh, I was going to say, hot dang. Yeah.
I tried.
You spent too much time with me on Henshin then. Epic announcer voice.
Hey, I've been using epic announcer voice since I started our show. It's just our synopsises are a lot longer and I tend to fall off faster.
Yeah, this is true. But thanks for regaling us with all of that. So just to let everybody know some quick preliminary information. By the way, if you want to know more about the making of this show, most of those details were discussed in the 2 previous episodes, so go check those out if you want to know more about those. At the show in general, we're focusing on these 3 episodes. So these aired in February of 1999 as part of Sweeps Month. You guys remember Sweeps Month?
Let's see. This was 99, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That means I would have been 14. So vaguely.
No, I'm just saying Sweeps Month. It was February, November, and I wrote it down. But we used to be a thing in television.
Yeah, because it was when they used to get all the actual ratings.
Yeah, the ratings and get their advertising budget put together. So they usually would do
where you put your big action.
They would do big crazy things in sweeps month for that.
But at the same time, I would have been 14 when this was out and would not have made that connection at the time.
Yeah. But what were those? I'm trying to remember. I know February, November were two of the sweeps months. What were the other?
According to what I've just found, it occurred 4 times a year, being February, May, July, and November.
Okay. Yeah. So that's why a lot of crazy things would happen. That's also why the episodes of this show aired out of order. Because the King Cobra, because that's the thing, all but one of the monsters.
That was just a 90s thing.
Yeah. All but one of the monsters in this was supposed to be a returning monster. The Cobra was supposed to have already appeared. So if you get the show on DVD, they put the episodes in the proper order, and the Cobra shows up in the episode just before this 3-parter.
Right.
Oh.
Whereas if you watched it on TV, it showed up afterward, even though they act like they've already seen it.
Well, I mean, they don't, at this time, television didn't expect you to actually catch every single episode.
So, but when they found out there was this big 3-part episode, they're like, put that in February. That'll be good for sweeps. So, it was the 10th, the 7th. No, wait. No, I got the dates wrong. Reference your notes, Marchand. Yeah, the 13th, 20th, and 27th. For some odd reason, I thought they all aired back to back in my head. But then when I did my research, they didn't.
I could see them editing them into like an hour-and-a-half mega episode.
Yeah.
Maybe throw in the Leviathan episode to
get
it out to a full 2 hours.
Yeah.
Make it a full movie then.
The previous episode that established the aliens and the cryptoclitus and the ships and everything. Although they never resolve what happens to Dr. Paloran from that. That's left very ambiguous. I wonder if they intended to explain things and then at some point in the writing process decided not to. For those who don't know, there was a scientist in this previous episode called Leviathan that you just see. He tries to help the aliens, realizes they're up to no good, helps Heat escape, but stays on the underwater ship in order to do it. And then he just expects to die. And then we see him walk into this very well lit door, and he just is like, "Oh yes," and then he just walks in, the door closes, and then it's left ambiguous as to whether or not he survived or not, and this doesn't resolve it.
What just didn't cross their minds, I suspect.
I don't know, but considering how much they actually paid attention to details, I'm surprised they didn't. This is also the only other multi-parter in the show other than the premiere.
Right.
Premiere was a 2-parter. This is a 3-parts. All the rest of the episodes are standalone. And this one does make probably the most callbacks to previous episodes because it brings a bunch of monsters back and it refers back to Leviathan. It calls back to the movie, which we'll get into. So,
all this happened before your former boss was on the show.
Right.
He wasn't interested in Monster Wars. He wanted us to inflate his ego. That's how he rolls. Anyway, but to let everybody know, some more preliminary details. Part 1 was directed by, I know this is the kind of stuff you guys do on your show, was directed by Christopher Berkeley and was written by Robert N. Skur, and I hope I said that right, and Marty Eisenberg, not Eisenborg. That's a whole other thing. Part 2 was directed by Sam Liu. I feel like that name sounds familiar. I don't know why it sounds familiar, though. I feel like he's directed some other big-time animation stuff.
It could be, because, I mean, a lot of those animation directors at the time were just going between studios.
Right. I'm sure
unless they had a big show like Gendy Tartakovsky and would have had this time with Dexter's Lab.
Right. I'm doing a quick Google search on this guy, see what else he's done. Roughneck, Starship Trooper Chronicles, The Batman from 2006, Batman versus Dracula. He's worked on a bunch of Marvel and DC projects.
That sounds about right, because those would all be big action stuff.
Yeah. And part 2 was
surprisingly, there's not a lot of crossover between this and Men in Black, the series, even though it's pretty much
the same studio.
Kind of show.
It's the same studio. Yeah. And let me see here. So directed by Sam Liu. It was written by Stephen Melching And then part 3 was directed by Alan Caldwell and written by Michael Reeves. And I can tell you right now, I'm just looking at this chart with all the names of the writers and directors, and there's a lot of big names in this that I recognize. This show had a lot of talent behind it. I'm just saying. So was this the first time you guys had seen this 3-parter?
No, I had watched previously when we were getting ready to come on for the Winters trilogy. I had watched all the way up to the first Cameron Winters episode, which included these 3. So I'd seen it then. Because then after that, I just kind of jumped ahead to get the other 2 because I had to get the DVD to my buddy here.
This is my first time actually watching this, and like obviously when you tie it in with Leviathan, it makes more sense because it say hypothetically I had not watched it, be like, okay, what happened? What's going on? But
yeah, I was going to ask about that. What did you think of the little expositional catch up that they did in early on in part 1? Do you think that would have been enough to keep, for anyone who missed that episode to get them caught up so they could proceed?
So I did not go back and rewatch Leviathan prior to watching it for this show. So I can tell you it reminded me just enough of what happened, but there's still a lot of stuff once you get into like the second and third episode.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is going on? I understood what was going on, but it's like there was just a couple points. It's like y'all are being more obtuse on this show than normal right now because you're having to refer back to an older episode, and you don't want to bore people who actually just saw it.
Well, as we've talked about before, this show is a lesson in economy. Like it gets a lot of stuff done very quickly,
right?
Which, depending on who you are, is good and bad.
Yeah, it gives you just enough to understand what's going on, but it's like the full ideas to who these aliens are and the Leviathan and all that. It really doesn't tell you much. Because it's trying to give you some mystery for the rest of the episodes.
Yeah, that's for sure. Which it was actually some of the stuff that I really enjoyed in part 1, because in a lot of ways, part 1 feels a little bit like a typical episode.
Oh yeah.
Other than the little hints at other things going on, like Zilla Jr. I always call him Zilla and Zilla Jr. because they've been rechristened. He still hasn't won that lawsuit with Toho about the renaming, despite the legal action team's best efforts. But it starts off with Zilla Jr. acting a little bit weird, going after a fishing boat, and then they're like, oh, there's a tachyon signal. Oh, like the one from the Leviathan. And that leads them to a military base where they're studying the ship, paying off some lines from the end of that episode where they're like, should we tell them that we found it? No, we shouldn't. Turns out Elsie let them know where it was.
Yeah.
Traitor.
Well, see, that's the thing. Do you think she did that intentionally, or was that part of the telepathic manipulation that was going on?
Got to be part of the telepathic
manipulation. Definitely.
And I give him kudos for her not being fully under control to give an excuse as to why every episode between Leviathan and this one, she's not working for the enemy.
Right.
Well,
and it's a good setup.
Yeah, well, actually, I really like what they did here. I don't know why the rest of Heat never got fully controlled like we saw with Hicks and some of the soldiers. And Elsie for a while. I don't know if that's a plot hole or not, but I like the idea that it's not full-fledged mind control. It's the aliens are using, and by that, the aliens, I mean the aliens downloaded themselves into 2 of these scientists who were on the alien ship. They had been captured. Right. Because we find out later that Earth's environment's hostile to them, which just begs one of those questions like, why are you invading a planet that you can't live on? I'm looking at you, Signs.
Or, oh, shoot. What's that H.G. Wells novel?
War of the Worlds?
War of the Worlds.
That's
whatever those aliens were.
In their defense, they didn't know.
True.
Yeah.
They didn't know, but
these aliens, obviously, they do know.
Which is why they downloaded their minds. So I'll give them credit for that. Like, at least the writers were like, they know they can't live here. So that's why they're downloading their minds into human bodies that then slowly mutate into the
ugliest aliens I've ever seen.
The alien designs in this are wild.
They
I mean,
are.
they're good designs, but it's like, oh, you definitely were making sure these were not humanoid.
Right? Yeah, because they have like they look kind of like they have 4 legs, but they fold them up under themselves and they float like the Harkonnens from from Dune.
Right.
And they have really long necks that can stretch out. Got
Mhm.
tusks, giant brains. It's like every
And goggle eyes.
yeah, and goggle eyes.
Yeah,
It's like
goggle eyes.
it's like they took every weird alien design, threw it into a blender, and these guys came out.
Yes.
They're absolutely insane. So kudos to the character design for this. But I think that's actually one of the great strengths of the show, because there's no way that this 3-parter could have been made in live action in the late 90s without dumping millions of dollars into it.
Or
this
just
really
looking
leans
really,
into the
or
advantages
just
of
looking
animation.
really cheesy.
Yeah.
I'm not even, I mean, it would still cost millions of dollars to do now.
Mhm.
True.
If they tried.
Even with
This-
CG, it would.
Mhm.
Yeah, this many monsters, the alien characters, all the spaceships, the locations, it
Mm-hmm.
it would have been insane.
one-time alien structures on the island.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Never get used again after this episode.
By the way, that island has been, it's associated with Monster Island. It's been, they call it Site Omega here, but the board rechristened it the Gamma Site because we got an alpha and a beta. So this is that one's the Gamma Site. It's way out in the South Seas though.
Nothing to worry about over there, is there?
It's just the critters that you see in this show. They're still over there.
So
Yeah.
keep an eye out for giant worms and bats. Gotcha.
Yeah, El Gusano.
Yes. El gusano gigante.
Gigante. Yeah.
You had that roll behind it.
I had to double check I was saying that right, by the way.
I'm glad that you did, or else Jimmy might have started yelling at you. But anyway, like I said, so there's all these little bits of foreshadowing, that make it seem like it's a little bit of an atypical episode. But I would say probably really, for the most part, up until the end, even when they go to Nigeria, it still feels more like a typical episode of the show. And then it's right at the end where we get the first cliffhanger that makes it abundantly clear. Oh yeah, the Leviathan aliens are back, and they've got a bunch of the monsters back too.
And I really do like that about this, that it just feels like, oh, you're watching another episode. You have no idea that you're about to see the words "to be continued" at the end of it.
Yeah, except I do remember when this originally aired. Good grief, the hype that was going on for it. It was nuts.
Well, I say you have no idea. The title did say part 1.
It kind of gave it away.
This is true. But what I was saying is, what I like about the telepathic manipulation is that it's not straight up mind control. He's just making them fight with each other.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is,
It's more of a passive mind control.
It's more of a passive mind control. And I actually think that he might just be bringing stuff to the surface.
It's really more of a hypnosis than actual brainwashing.
Well, like I said, I think the tensions are actually real. He's just amplifying it because they are for the most part keeping it at bay, and he's just bringing it, like I said, bringing it to the surface, which I think is pretty interesting.
Well, and you could see the tensions between the Heat members in all the previous episodes. There's,
right.
As much as they work well together, they also can very easily get at each other's throats. I mean, especially between
Craven and Randy.
Yeah, and Nigel.
And Nigel.
Poor Nigel.
Poor Nigel.
He
He was
can't get a break.
am I right in thinking there's only one episode where Nigel doesn't get blown up?
I think it's 3.
Still, poor Nigel.
Yeah, poor Nigel. He got stuck in Jet's head for a while.
That's almost a modern day ship of Thesis. How many times has he been rebuilt as he's still Nigel?
I don't know. You'll have to talk to Jet because he had to put up with that poor traumatized AI in his head for a while.
I don't understand Jet speak, so I'll just let it go.
There's an obvious joke there for the animation guys.
What? I don't understand jet speak. Oh, you mean let it go?
Oh,
it took you a second.
Ready, row.
Admittedly, I have wiped a lot of Frozen from my mind.
But anyway, the one new monster we get in this 3-parter is the bat. What'd you guys think of the bat in this?
Well, he certainly is a big bat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the thing about the kaiju in this show is that a lot of them are just animal that's big. And to some degree, I like that simplicity compared to, the other monsters shows I'm used to, like Power Rangers and Sentai and all that stuff. But yeah, he's a giant bat, and they did a good job on his design because he actually looks like a bat and not the artist rendition of a bat.
Yeah.
Right.
Stays true to what the
actual biology of a bat.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Except technically he shouldn't be running around in the daylight.
Right.
But then when you're that size, and the only reason they're nocturnal is because they don't run into as many predators there. So, but when you're that big, you don't really worry about predators.
You become the apex predator.
You are the predader.
Yeah, I mean, who's he going to hide from? Godzilla?
Well, yeah. And that okay. Zilla got his head caught in that bridge. And it seriously took him hours to figure out how to just turn his head around differently and get out. It's like seeing a cat get its head in a jar or something.
You're telling me Godzilla Jr. is not just a big cat?
I don't know. He's a little. He's as loyal as a dog.
Well, he's kind of both, actually. That does make you wonder if you can get close enough to pet him if he starts purring.
Well, he does listen.
Yeah. That's the dog part. The cat.
Exactly.
If it was the cat part, he would ignore him completely. Though he does that later in the episode.
True.
I'm just surprised that the censors on Fox at the time actually allowed them to let the bat bite Godzilla on the nose.
Yeah. Good night. That was violent.
Yes.
I guess it's that idea. It's like, well, if the animals are fighting, you can get a little more violent than if they were fighting humans. I don't know. I'm guessing because most of these censorship rules make no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, and for what I read, Fox was a little bit looser with it compared to the other ones.
Yeah. Well,
Didn't stop the moms groups from beating up Power Rangers, but
well, there's a difference between censors to cover their butts and censors to keep the moms groups away from them.
True. Although
this time, if I'm not mistaken, Saban would not be controlling Fox Kids. It would be some other company, wouldn't it?
I don't know how much control Saban had at that point.
Saban pretty much owned that block in the days of X-Men and Power Rangers.
Yeah.
That's true.
They were running
and then they shifted.
And later on, it would go to 4Kids, but I don't think this. I think this is still before 4Kids.
Yeah, then
it would have to be before 4Kids because they would have neutered this show.
Yeah, next year though they switched their focus to Digimon because they wanted to compete with Pokemon.
Well, yes.
Yeah. Digimon is
that's why I know it wasn't 4Kids. They were over on Kids WB at the time.
Yeah. But I have to say, rewatching this, I'm like, I forgot that they got a little violent in this one, as we'll talk about a bit later. But yeah, so he got to bite Godzilla on the nose. That was not nice. It was very not nice. But anyway,
thankfully we didn't have to deal with too much screaming from the bat.
Yes,
for his echolocation.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say. So the bat is Black Canary or Banshee, depending on which comic book company you read. It actually makes sense as a superpower, and I think doesn't Wingnut from Ninja Turtles do the same thing? I think he does. I know in the video games he does.
I don't remember.
Don't know.
Yeah, it's still seems like a fairly obvious superpower to give to a bat kaiju.
You would think,
that or blood drinking. I think that might have been what the bat was doing when it bit Godzilla on the nose.
Oh, more than likely, that has to be like a giant vampire bat in reality.
Because he's got big.
That is not a fruit bat.
Yeah, he got big old fangs there, so wouldn't surprise me.
We're just lucky it didn't turn Godzilla into some vampire hybrid.
Draczilla. Oh God, that's gonna happen. There's some fan fiction out there where that happens.
I'd pay money to watch that.
Oh my gosh! So I just wanted to highlight a couple of things up, since we're still on part one for the most part here. So one of my favorite lines in this episode is it's from Randy. He says, where because him and Monique are French femme fatale. They show up to help Nick.
Who I have to remind myself every time she's French, because in my mind she's Russian.
That's right.
She's half French, half Vietnamese, officially.
Fair, but at the same time, the French connection that this and the movie has, in my mind, feels more like they ought to be Russians.
French connection, huh?
You knew what I meant.
It's a movie title, but anyway.
So at this point, I'm calling them Prussians.
You do realize that there is a Russian bot who is a comedian on Monster Island, right?
And he's not here.
He's not here.
Good.
He's still on the island. He goes by Drushbot, and he has a little friend named Sputnik.
It makes sense.
Sure.
All he does is in Mother Russia jokes, though. Or
So
he talks about
jokes.
that, or he talks about stealing all your stuff because Russian bot.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But anyway, they show up.
Yeah.
So they show up, and Nick understands why Monique would be there, but he's like, Randy, why are you here? Because the last time they saw each other, they were fighting. And his response was, hang out with Craven in the lab, boat trip with a serious hottie. You do the math.
That was a good line.
Considering the future of those characters.
Yes, they got together. Their relationship is
spoiler
still kind
alert
of weird
here.
and a little uneasy, but they did get together. I'm a little amazed that Monique never killed him.
Maybe that's what attracted him to her.
The constant threats of murder.
Yes. Oh, please.
Yeah, well,
that guy is never worried about anything.
true. I mean, I guess we don't kink shame around here. Jimmy, I don't want to know. Okay, we're moving on. I already learned a little bit more about you when we had to capture Utam back in Hong Kong. So no. Okay.
I'm going to make the assumption that I don't want to know.
Yeah, probably. But then the other thing I was going to bring up, just because the running joke with Nigel is his random pop culture references.
Yeah.
And he has a line in this that I just felt like doing research on this. He says, "You'll never take me alive, coppers," because they make him drive the Jeep to distract the soldiers at Sandy Point, the military base. And I looked that up. That's actually a Phantom movie line. It was never actually said.
Much like Luke, I am your father, or beam me up, Scotty, or
but at
play it again,
least
Sam.
But at least with those, there are lines that are very close. People just misquote them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because it's not Luke, I am your father.
It's no,
I am your father. So it's slight differences.
Yes.
Slight differences. Now, Beam Me Up, Scotty was never said on the show, and the closest Shatner ever came to saying it was in Star Trek 4.
Yes, and he said, Scotty, beam me up.
Or he said, Scotty, beam me up. But beside the point.
But I don't remember the exact play it again, Sam, how that works out.
Yeah. I think it was Sam play it for her or something like that. But I could be wrong. Jimmy,
it's close.
Jimmy, look that up for your blog. But this line is attributed to James Cagney, but he never really said it. He said a few things that were close, but never quite that. Like he said in a movie called Angels with Dirty Faces, he said, "Empty your thick skull, copper. Get back, copper, or I'll spit in your eye again." And then he said it in a movie called White Heat, where he said, "Come and get me, copper."
Right.
And then a closer one still actually wasn't Cagney. It was Edward G. Robinson in a movie called Little Caesar, where he said, "I told you coppers." And then he also said, "You'll never get cuffs on me." So just a fun little bits of trivia I thought I would bring up. So yeah, it's a Phantom movie line.
Cool.
But anyway, we can move on to part 2 now. And part 2 is where we're in full swing. Like at this point, it's well established. These are not typical episodes. And we start slowly ratcheting things up. So we saw a bunch of the previous monsters show up on the island, but all they did was show up.
Yeah, they didn't fight each other.
But they don't fight each other.
Really fight each other in this one.
No, they don't. They just
No, the bat, Monique and Randy manipulate the bat and the cryptocleitus to fight each other.
That's right.
That's at the beginning of the next one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beginning of part 2.
Yeah. So we're in part 2, and then the aliens break it up.
Yeah. By hypnotizing both of them.
With their tachyon giant satellite dish that probably doesn't get HBO.
Tachyons, the true enemies of the Federation.
This is true. But so, there's all this stuff where it picks up with the characters that are dealing with their own sets of problems. They've all basically been separated. Nick and Craven are trying to get into Sandy Point. Monique and Randy are on the Heat Seeker, dealing with a couple of monsters, trying to get to where they need to be. All that sort of stuff. And then we find out Elsie is, we build off of the previous episode where Elsie is helping the government with the Leviathan. Turns out she's being manipulated by the aliens. And the main thing that happens in this episode is basically right at the halfway point of the episode, which is the halfway point of this, we get the big bombshell, which is Cyberzilla.
Which, let's be honest, it's that because they weren't allowed to use the name Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah.
Sure, but Mecha Godzilla is not a cyborg. He's a robot.
And you're telling me they didn't just the third Godzilla, Mecha Godzilla, it has elements of the original Godzilla in it.
Yeah, but this is before Kiryu.
Kiryu. I get the name confused. Anyway.
Yeah, but this is before Kiryu.
Hey, inspiration happens in all directions.
True.
I understand. Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff.
Exactly. But either way, I mean, let's face it, if they could have gotten away with calling it Mecha Godzilla, they would have.
Yeah.
They probably would have. I just love the fact that they're taking advantage of this being a sequel to the movie.
Yes.
It's a great callback. And honestly, I think it's a great use.
Agreed.
Yeah, if the movie had gotten a sequel, this would be it.
Oh, we'll talk about the sequel it was going to try to get. That's the quote unquote Toku topic. We don't really do official Toku topics in Godzilla Redux.
Right.
But I did do a little research on the sequel that they tried to make, and it's eerily similar to this show.
Well, it makes sense that once they couldn't get the sequel going, you turn the project in somewhere else where you can still get it out there without doing much extra work. But yeah. I can see it being adapted for the show very easy. The sequel idea.
Yeah. But anyway, yes, Cyberzilla, the Godzilla or Zilla, whatever you want to call him, from the movie is now in the show as resurrected as a cyborg who is 100% loyal to the aliens.
Which I absolutely loved. They brought this in.
Yes.
That is just the cool. That was to me the coolest moment of these episodes.
The revelation.
Oh, just the fact that we have Cyber Godzilla and Godzilla Jr. and the simple fact that Daddy's home means he's not listening to Nick anymore.
Yeah.
They couldn't agree on what to call him though. I wonder if that was just kind of a joke for the writers' part, because they're like, do we point out the fact that the original was asexual? We can't say that on a kid's show, can we?
Technically, that would be the same for Zilla Jr. too,
but but they got around that and they just said
they do go back and forth between the pronouns.
Yeah, because the first time is, I think they called it daddy, and then later on they said birth mother, I think.
Yeah.
It's confusing.
But remember, I'm only the adopted father.
I'm only his adoptive father.
That's the original one.
Yeah.
I just to get ahead to the third episode, he says, well, look who's been readopted.
Yeah. That's a good line, actually. Look who's been readopted. But the thing that's interesting about this is, even though Junior has more personality than his parent, we'll say.
Yes.
That's just because they had more time to work with Junior.
This is true.
They could actually use character development.
Yeah, the writers of the show still took a more natural, we're still coming at this from a naturalistic standpoint. So they figured out a way to create drama for the giant animal. It's kind of brilliant. Now, do you guys think they did enough with that?
I don't think they did as much as I would have liked, because it's really just an excuse as to why Godzilla's not working with the Heat team. This is what it really seems like. It feels more like an excuse than actual plot point, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Do you think it would have, and this was something, because this is something I thought about, do you think it would have been more interesting if Godzilla didn't have to be mind controlled by the aliens? He just like, oh, it's daddy. And he just went along with it because
that's
it was
the thing is throughout most of this, I couldn't even tell you Godzilla Jr. was mind controlled.
Oh, they said he was.
I know they said he was.
Yeah.
But in terms of how he was used after that point, he could have just been doing what his daddy told him.
Yeah.
And it would have made about the same amount of difference.
Yeah, that's why I wondered if maybe they should have just skipped that. Maybe, I don't know. It just seems like something, because the aliens say, oh, this one needs a little extra power. So they did say that Zilla Jr. was more resistant.
It does make sense later on when they're showing the monsters attacking like all the major capitals, and and one Godzilla is in Tokyo while the other's in Washington. So I mean,
because of course.
Yeah.
Also, I don't think there are very many people who would mind Godzilla destroying DC at this point. I mean, if you want him to take out the Capitol, I don't think anyone would miss it.
Well, I mean, the Independence Day aliens took it out once. Why not Godzilla?
Yeah, exactly. Why not Godzilla at this point? But I will say there is a line that I think was meant to create some tension, which is, if we break the mind control, how do we know Zilla Jr. will be loyal to us and not to Daddy? So
that's a good question.
That is a very good point.
So I give him credit for that, but I do think it would have been a little more interesting, actually a lot more interesting, if the mind control didn't work. So they used Cyberzilla to basically persuade Junior to side with them for at least a while.
Or maybe it worked like a little bit, but the Cyberzilla being there just kind of reinforced it.
Yeah.
And since they were separated for so long, while one was on one side of the planet and the other was on the other, it was weakened enough that Nick could get back control. Or get back in influence, I should say.
Yeah.
Nick was never in control of Godzilla.
No, he could just point him in the right direction with a bit of work.
I mean, the crew of the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla show had more control over their Godzilla than Nick does.
Oh my gosh.
Nick can just do suggestions and pray it works.
The similarities between these shows is
it is crazy. But you don't have Godzuki.
The main difference really just boils down to tone.
And Godzuki.
Yeah.
Which, that being said, is he on the island?
Godzuki? Yeah.
I need to next time we're there, I want to see if I can get an interview with him.
Oh, he actually got on the air once.
Oh, well, that makes sense, all things considered. But that would be a nice interview. Get to interview an animation legend.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's a fun little guy. He's a fun little guy. Still don't know how he flies, but
Kaiju magic.
True, but like I said, I still don't know how he's Godzilla's nephew. That's the weird part.
How is Manila Godzilla's son?
Adoption.
And this could be similar.
The adopted nephew.
Maybe it's Manila's cousin.
Potentially. Anyway,
I'm guessing. I don't know.
Anyway, back to the show. So this is, like I said, this is when it really starts ramping up. And by the end of this, it's full tilt Destroy All Monsters, where we have the montage of the kaiju attacking cities all over the world, including, I might add, places that were in Destroy All Monsters, which are also cities that rarely see kaiju action. Like Paris. The only other time I could think of, unless I'm missing something, look it up, Jimmy, if you want. The only other time Paris has ever been attacked by kaiju was Destroy All Monsters.
I was thinking for a second maybe Monsters and Aliens, but I don't think they actually did a worldwide thing.
Never didn't.
Mind.
No, and
there was only one real monster in that could have done that.
And the bat goes to Moscow, and the only other times that I can think of where Moscow has been attacked by a kaiju was Destroy All Monsters and my novella Destroyer, which you should go buy on Amazon right now.
I have a copy of
yes, I'm starting the shameless self-promotion early. Sue me.
I have a copy of that somewhere around here.
Oh, good for you. I'll be sure to sign it for you before you leave.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So the montage, like I said, is where it makes it abundantly clear. Yes, this is Destroy All Monsters now. And appropriately, Cyberzilla goes to Tokyo because, of course.
Which really makes that one mother in that one episode that took place in Japan feel really weird. So when she says, "Silly boy, what would Godzilla be doing in Japan?"
Dr. Afukabe.
Was that her name? I didn't catch.
Yes.
This is not a plane.
Who made the Robo Yeti?
Well, that was that episode. But
the mom. Okay, you mean the mom? Yeah.
When the boy said, "Look, Mom, it's Godzilla." What would Godzilla be doing in Japan? Irony.
Yeah, irony. But so Cyberzilla is there, and Cyberzilla got an upgrade. He has a proper atomic breath now, probably from the cybernetic implant.
Yes,
and it's blue. It's freaking blue.
Yes, finally. He was just breathing fire in the movie, for crying out loud.
I don't know if that was fire or not.
It was more dragon than kaiju, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, but it's blue. It's like, that this is because most of the people who worked on the show were Godzilla fans. Like, that's them tapping into their into their fandom right there. It's like, make it blue, give him fire, make it blue. Our regular boy, he's gonna have green fire but
that's just blue. That's just the color of the show. So
right. And then Junior goes to Washington D.C., which I don't think has ever been attacked by a kaiju before.
Just aliens.
Yeah, just aliens. Again, Jimmy, you might want to research that. And if I remember correctly, didn't he knock off the top of the Washington Monument? Am I getting it mixed up? I think he hit the Washington Monument and then said hello to the Lincoln Memorial.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Which was amusing for me as a kid, because I'm like, I've been there.
And I still haven't. So
I'm sorry. You have a teleporter now. It wouldn't be hard.
True, but
hey,
then
deal
you have
it.
the issue of time off.
This is true. Hey, deal it. Can you send these boys to Washington, D.C.?
She says there's some weird shield around Washington. Best she can do is Baltimore.
Oh, darn.
I wonder why.
Uh-huh.
Convenience.
Well, the last thing that I will be, I do want to make sure I mention for this episode is I do.
Sorry, Deela said that whatever shield that is around Washington is the same one she detected around Area 51 a couple months back.
Makes sense. Maybe the
anyway.
aliens,
sorry.
I mean, they said, well, maybe the aliens might come back. This could have only been round one. Maybe they're still there.
Fight.
Just saying, maybe they're in DC.
Maybe it's Final Fantasy Spirits Within.
Please no.
Dome Cities, please.
Oh no.
Hey, I like that movie, but let's face it, that is a knockoff of Akira.
It's anyway. Before I get distracted by that. Another thing I will mention about part 2 is it has what I think could be essentially the thematic statement for this 3-parter, said by Nick. He says, "Listen, spaceman, our isolated minds allow for diversity. Individuality isn't a weakness, it's our strength." Because apparently the aliens have a hive mind.
Determination is relevant. You must comply. I'm sorry. I went straight to best of both worlds. Star Trek Next Generation.
Of course you would. I would expect you would.
It's like, that's not quite how Picard would have talked to him, but it's the same thought.
I mean, the brevity of the show doesn't allow for speechification.
This is the closest we get, yes.
Yeah, this is the closest you get. But yeah, because the aliens have a hive mind.
Yes.
Because they make reference to that. And they think that the humans are weak because they don't have a hive mind. And they're always fighting with each other because he said, even if you're united in purpose, you can't match us.
Yeah, that's why we took care of you back on the Leviathan a couple episodes ago without any issue, wasn't it? Although you did have something in your back pocket there, we'll admit.
Yes. Yes, quite. But I also think it speaks to what we're seeing in this three-parter, because by the spoiler warning in part 3, the control of the monsters is broken, and then they start basically uniting together, sort of, to fight the aliens, and they weren't expecting that.
Well, I mean, once I don't know, I had something there and I lost it.
Well,
inconceivable.
I'll try not to take that personally.
What I will say is that it's a very American, I guess you could say, spin or version of a very prominent theme that you saw especially in Showa Godzilla films.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a very Honda thing, the
yeah.
brotherhood of man, and people unite, the world uniting together in a common cause.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I said, it's just a very American take on it, and it does sound very TNG-ish.
Well, it's just the first thing that came to my mind.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts on part 2?
Other than, even though I know this ain't Matthew Broderick voicing Nick here, Matthew Broderick is more like a Wesley than a Picard. But anyway.
We talked about that the last time you guys were on.
Sorry.
about how it's Ian Ziering from Beverly Hills 90210, but it was originally one of his castmates. But then he didn't have the time and ended up being Cameron Winter.
And I get that. I get that. It's just, anyway.
Yep.
There's a part of me that's always going to feature the voice being Matthew Broderick, even though I know it's not Matthew Broderick.
Yeah.
It ain't Ferris Bueller. I get that. But anyway.
Tatopoulos. Come get your lizard.
Here, lizard.
Did you know there was one point where did we talk about this the last time you guys were on? They wanted to have that dog on the show.
Oh, that makes sense.
Oh.
The Chihuahua dog. The Chihuahua taco dog.
Yeah.
The Taco Bell Chihuahua dog is the best part of the movie.
Taco Bell.
You're lizard. Anyway, part 3. That is also because Saban did apparently have a hand in making this show too, and that seems like a very Saban move to make.
At the height of Saban's power, they didn't have their fingers in everything at this point.
At least on Fox, yeah.
Before they sold everything to Disney.
Yeah. Oh boy.
So anyway, part 3, which starts off with the aliens monologuing about their evil plans and what they want to do. And we find out it's like, yes, we're going to colonize your planet and enslave you. Which I feel like is a little different than most American and alien invasion stories. It seems like in American and alien invasion stories, it's just straight up genocide. And this one, it's like, no, colonization and enslavement.
Well, I mean, that kind of works with the whole hive mind thing, assimilate into one culture.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they apparently need vessels.
These are essentially bioborgs anyway. So
yeah, and they need vessels to transplant people's minds. Because in this episode, we
biological vessels.
Yeah, vessels. Biological vessels. But actually, to piggyback off of that, but with something that happens later on in the episode, you want to talk about gruesomeness. We see one of the aliens just flat out melt.
Yeah.
Oh,
on-screen alien death.
Well, dude, even the transformation scenes from at the end of this when they're going back to human, and then earlier it's like, good night. This is a kid show.
They got
to give kids nightmares with this nonsense.
They got away with a lot of stuff in this episode.
Oh yes,
yeah, they did. Actually, I kind of like the fact that as the episodes progress, and then by the end of part 2, it's Huffman. I think it's Huffman and Soppler. They are full tilt aliens by that point. But throughout the whole thing, they slowly morph into the aliens from scene to scene, and I'm like, it's almost like a little metaphor for the slow corruption of their souls, you know?
Yeah. But I mean, like right near the end of that one, right before they unveil Cyber Godzilla, there was that one big like moment where they fully went alien.
That's right. Yeah,
from that half alien look.
Yeah. So I thought that was a nice progression that we saw there. It's a good visual cue for what's going on, because at this point they are the bad guys.
Yeah, and that effect does have a It's a much more fluid animation than you see on the rest of the show, too.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, it's just the style.
Right. But yeah, but then they ask us, but then actually they ask a question that I'm surprised doesn't get asked in more alien invasion stories. Was like, if you want to conquer the planet, why are you destroying it? And it's a necessity.
We plan to rebuild most of it.
Yeah,
All
we're gonna
wonderful
rebuild most. We
speed
like
zones.
some of your architecture, and then we get. This is one of the best lines in the entire three-parter. That
Yes,
I
how
think
wonderful to be
speaks
known
to how
as a society
clever.
that created aluminum siding.
Yeah, how comfortable he knows this piece of invented aluminum siding, said by Craven. I'm like, this is why this show is good. There are not very many writers who would think to come up with something like that. That is just so good. No, not the pyramids, not the Eiffel Tower, or the Parthenon, or all nope, aluminum siding.
Just the trailer parks.
Yeah, just the trailer parks.
Hey, these are trailer park aliens by the looks of them. So can't you just see them out there with their 12 gauges shooting at the pigs, wearing flannel and a beer cap?
Only if one of them talks like Boomhauer.
Okay, I can see that. One of them sells propane and propane accessories. The other one's days are long behind him in high school when they won the football, took the football team to state. And the other one runs an extermination business.
And throws pocket sand at people. He can't ramble about conspiracy theories, though, because he is a conspiracy theory.
He is the conspiracy theory.
He is the conspiracy theory. Yeah, I may have to somehow meme that. I don't know how. I'm gonna have to take the alien faces and just Photoshop them on top of the 4 characters from King of the Hill.
My word.
I don't know if my Photoshop skills are that good, though.
I'll see if I can give you a hand with that when we get back home.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but yeah. Aluminum siding.
I'm sure they like the look of Walmart too.
Oh gosh.
What would they do with Walmart?
Always get low prices, obviously.
No. But would there be money in their post-invasion utopia?
Well, that depends. Are they communist or capitalist?
This is true, but considering they have a hive mind, I'm going with communist.
Maybe.
Maybe. I would love to hear your economic theories about how you can make a hive mind work with capitalism.
Have I mentioned I'm a graphic designer and don't know jack about the economy?
Well, and then maybe you shouldn't talk about communism and capitalism.
Maybe so, but anyway.
Yeah, anyway.
He doesn't have a doctorate in that yet.
I don't have a doctorate, period. I'm lucky to have an associate's degree. Thank you very much. 2 of them.
Ooh,
Well,
does
2 associate's degrees make a bachelor's?
It should, but it doesn't. Especially since one of them is general studies.
So you majored in useless knowledge.
I majored in I'm going to another college and then realized, oh yeah, nothing I'm studying I can actually do because I forgot I suck at math.
Well, anyway.
I thought I was going into programming. I didn't.
Speaking of goofy graphic design, I love how the psionic amplifier array, there's some technobabble for you.
Yeah.
Looks like a giant cornball.
Oh, like that's any better than the satellite dish that looks like an upside down mushroom.
Very true.
Don't say mushroom too loud. He might show up.
My apologies.
Kind of like Beetlejuice. You see it 3 times?
Shh! Shut up! Silence. You call us. He did it once already. Anyway. I know, Jimmy. You're disturbed too. Anyway, we're moving on. So, the giant cornball. And I love how they're like, Craven's like, I'm going to technobabble this thing, and then Monique just shoots it.
Yes.
Yes. Perfect solution.
Works for me.
Sometimes the right solution is the easy one.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I could use multimodal reflection sorting or boom.
Takes care of the problem. Although before that, okay, I have to ask you guys this. Because I can't figure out if the writers were doing something incredibly clever here or if this was a massive oversight. Because before heat goes in there, before they just shoot the thing and blow up the cornball,
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to figure out what to do. And but basically, Monique is talking about how they're going to go in there and overload the thing.
Yeah.
And then Randy says, or as we say in English, and then Nick finishes the sentence by saying sabotage. They're like, hold on, guys. That's a French word.
Yes.
Yes.
And if you watch Star Trek 6, they tell you
Yeah,
where
I
it
was
came
thinking
from.
the same thing.
It was about
Those are
throwing.
wooden
No,
shoes,
because she said we could throw a monkey wrench into their operation.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
And
why
then,
not
or
just
as we
throw
say in
wooden
English,
shoes?
sabotage. Because sabotage, the word sabotage, again, watch Star Trek 6, went back to, I think, I'm trying to remember, was it the
They
Industrial
used to throw
Revolution? They
their-
would throw shoes.
Their wooden
machinery.
shoes called sabot into the machinery to keep it from working, hence the word sabotage. Thank
Yeah.
you, Vulcan lady. Who's
Yeah.
obviously the villain. Spoiler
Varys.
alert.
No, not
Yes.
Varys.
It's Valera or
Valeris. Yeah.
Valeris.
Valeris.
She's a knockoff of Kirstie Alley's character. Moving on.
Yeah, moving on. But Savick. Anyway.
Savick, yes.
But
Half
anyway,
Romulan.
I'm like, were you guys being clever there? Because if you were with French lady, because French lady uses the American idiom, and then they use the French word. I don't know if this is clever or a huge oversight.
My suspicion, oversight.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Clever line.
Yeah, it's a clever line. But at the same time, it's like that almost feels like it was thought out too much.
Yeah, it was.
They put too much thought into it, and it kind of made it awkward.
I can see both. I can see both of
It
it.
didn't flow well, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I was just
Anyway.
like, wait a minute. I bet it could be a case of I have the curse of knowledge,
That's always possible,
or the curse of watching Star Trek 6.
among many things.
Yes.
Yes, quite.
Indeed.
But we did have the part before this where they're able to break Elsie of the mind control because Monique is a cavalcade of convenient but weird skills.
That's kind of her point in this show.
Yeah.
Deus Ex Monique.
There we go.
Deus Ex Monique. She's either the muscle or has a lot of weird skills that she just pulls out of nowhere because French super spy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, it's like a weird sort of hypnosis thing that she can use to calm people down or break mind control.
My only problem there is once Elsie breaks control, it has a very Spock's brain feel to it.
You're not kidding?
You're going to Spock's brain.
I'm just remembering Dr. McCoy after he gets the thing put in, so he figures out how to rewire Spock's brain to put back into Spock. And he goes, "Of course, it's so simple. A 5-year-old could do it." I was like, and yet you won't remember this 5 minutes from now. And it's that same kind of thing. It's like, oh, of course, I know how to do this. I got access to all their stuff. 15 minutes later, I don't know crap.
Yeah, but they give an explanation in this. It's because they blew up the satellite, so they weren't beaming anything into her head anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but it's still a very Spock's brainish convenience.
Mm-hmm.
How else are they going to get out of there?
I'm with him. I'm just reeling from the fact that Spock's brain was brought into this discussion. For those who don't know, Spock's brain is probably the most infamous episode of the original Star Trek, and
It's
usually gets ranked as one of the worst episodes.
It's one I would love to see the Riff Trex guys make fun of.
Oh, it would be so easy to riff that one.
Oh, yeah. It's almost too easy.
I will admit, at least that one is a so bad it's good sort of an episode. So I would argue it's not the absolute.
No,
worst
that was
episode
later in
because
the
it
season.
still has some entertainment value, but still, it is infamous among Star Trek fans.
Yeah, it's not the worst episode of Star Trek ever made.
Moving
We'll
on.
get into what is the worst.
Yeah, moving on. But still, she pulls that. I guess
Convenience.
it gets a little convenient, but it's also, I guess it's because it's telepathy and not technology like in Destroy All Monsters, where all you had to do was, I don't know, rip earrings off of a woman, and then she's not mind controlled anymore, but her ears hurt.
She's not going to be able to think straight anyway in that situation.
Yeah, well, that's what happened. Yeah, they just ripped the earrings off and just ow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ow.
Couldn't the aliens have made those clip-ons?
Yeah. Apparently not. Yeah, those dang disco space nuns is just. Yeah. But anyway, we're setting it up so that we're keeping the humans pretty proactive at this point. Our protagonists, they're still running around doing stuff. They hijack an alien ship. They're attacking some of the alien ships because some of the monsters are coming back to the island and trying to fight Cyberzilla. And there's all of this stuff going on. And then they break the Godzilla. Zilla shows up because the mind control's been broken, but they still have control of Cyberzilla. And then Zilla Jr. has to make a decision. Nick or Big Daddy? And he makes a decision by blowing up an alien ship, because that's what you do when you want to get your point across. You nuke an alien ship.
Yes. Look who's been readopted.
Yes. Great line.
And then we get what we've been waiting for. We get the showdown between father and son, mother and child, however, parent and child. I don't know. However you want to put it. What'd you guys think of that fight?
It was a good fight. My only issue is it's like I saw the end coming from a mile away.
Yeah, you can't exactly keep Zilla in the show.
When you know that you've got another quarter of the season left, at least, before you consider there's a second season.
More like 2/3, but 2/3 of the show. But
well, I was thinking just the season.
Yeah.
Because they could have been canceled at the end of the first. Anyway. It's like, there's not much. You kind of know that it's like going to a superhero movie. You know who's going to win. The question is just how you get there. And I think the fight is good. It's just short because we didn't have much time left in the episode.
And the fact that Zilla Jr. literally just takes a bite out of the
I wanted to talk. There are points where this is weirdly violent.
We are talking about essentially zombie cyborg Zilla. Here, this is not the Zilla that was around in New York earlier that year.
Yeah,
this is a very neutered Godzilla.
Yeah, but Cyberzilla takes an atomic breath to the face.
Yeah.
I'm like, you went there, and then he loses an arm. Because his arm gets shot off. Now it's a robot arm, so that's probably how they got away with it. But
yeah, because you can blow up robots, you just can't blow up humans.
Yeah, or monsters,
biologicals.
Yeah, but then as you pointed out, Jacob, Junior just rips out his, I don't know, to quote C-3PO, his rusty innards.
Fatality.
Yes.
Godzilla Jr. wins.
I'm just
perfect.
I'm just saying, this is great. This is actually strangely violent, and this is one of the few monsters on the show who actually dies.
Yes. But you got to take out Senior sooner or later.
Yeah.
I mean, he's already dead for most of the beginning of this, so bringing him back was kind of a cool thing to do anyway, but you can't have him be like, I guess you could have had him being a threat going forward, but then that would only work if somehow Cameron Winters had gotten a hold of him.
Oh, that would have been so fun.
That would have been fun, but I don't think they thought of that.
Probably not. They also probably thought, let's not abuse this too much. We'll put it in the big 3-parter, but we probably shouldn't use Cyberzilla again because it would kind of cheapen it.
And I kind of suspect this may have been part of the sequel idea, and that's why it got reused.
Actually, no, but there were other things from the show that seemed other things from the show that looked like they were taken from that sequel, which we'll talk about here in a minute.
Well, then I'm slightly disappointed that Roland Emmerich didn't think to go full Mechagodzilla in a sequel.
I don't know. They were supposed to get a trilogy, so maybe by movie 3 it would happen. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, the aliens get beat. Somehow Hoffman and Soppler are not dead. They partially revert, but not all the way. And then they said, "Oh, we'll just have to work on reviving them." And I'm like, "Are you sure they're not dead?"
That's because of censorship.
Yeah, they can't exactly be like, "Oh, they're dead."
They have to be able to come back eventually.
Yeah,
because we can't kill a human, even though we just showed them mutate into weirdo aliens.
And the aliens can melt. We'll have aliens melt pretty gruesomely.
Yeah, but those two aliens never melt because we saw them turn into aliens from humans, so they're somewhat protected by the censorship rule.
Plot
I don't know. I may be reading too much into that.
Yeah, probably. But it ends with them saying, "Oh, we got to go find all the monsters, and we'll bring them to the island." So we get a monster island in this.
Ain't that lovely?
Yep. And it does factor into some future episodes, including a really clever one later. Have you seen that one?
No, I need to go back and finish watching the whole show.
Okay, there's one later where a bunch of eco-terrorists take over the island, and it's done as found footage.
PETA saves Kaiju. Gotcha.
Nope, Scale. That's the name of the organization. And their leader...
Essentially Kaiju PETA?
And their leader... I forget her name, but their leader is voiced by Linda Blair.
With a name like Scale, her name ought to be Talon. I'm just saying.
I don't remember what her name is. I just remember she was voiced by Linda Blair. Anyway, so this is definitely the point where you can tell they're really throwing more of the Japanese stuff into this.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, this whole 3-parter was an homage to Destroy All Monsters. That's pretty obvious. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I think these are the 3 best episodes of the show.
I think I agree with that, actually.
Yeah. There's nothing quite this epic throughout the rest of it. There's still good episodes.
Yeah.
But nothing nearly this epic. And it comes relatively early, too. It's within the first third of the show.
I'm sure it was like their first major tentpole arc that they had come up with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they thought they could do something later, but then, Digimon happened. And that's
and then the show...
That's a whole other kettle of Digifish.
Yeah, because despite really good ratings, the show became a victim of the Pokemon Digimon wars because that was the new hotness.
Very true.
And those only died recently, so...
Yeah, because Pokemon finally aired its last episode.
No, it didn't.
Well, Ash is done.
Ash is done, but they're making another season with a new character.
Of course they are, because money.
Because that show will never die.
No.
It's just they're finally saying, "Oh, we've run out of ideas to do with these characters, so we'll make new characters. Hopefully that'll work."
Yeah,
because that worked for every other show.
Yeah.
Ha he.
Anyway, any final thoughts
games
on
on
this?
Motorcycles? Anyway,
any final thoughts on this 3-parter?
This was a fun 3 episodes. I enjoyed them.
Good story. Very good story.
Yeah,
I wish we got more like this.
Yeah.
I really do think that this show is a little underestimated because the talent in this was just exceptionally good. Like it was
it's got the unfortunate connection to one of the most least well-received Godzilla films, and it does have a art style in its animation that not many people gravitate toward.
Mm-hmm.
It does look a little weird. I will say that.
I like it just because of its difference, but that's the same reason I liked MIB the series also.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and they also made Extreme Ghostbusters.
Yes,
same studio.
I like that. I think I like the studio. It's just they never did anything else after this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. Anyway, and what about you, Jacob? What'd you think?
I enjoyed it. I like the build up of the aliens. I like their let's resurrect the OG Godzilla and have that be a pivot point in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have all of our characters kind of fighting with each other, and they have to solve that issue why they're fighting with each other. Like, of course, it's the aliens.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously you get the monsters fighting, and they go out and try to destroy the world for the aliens can take over. Of course. And all those little factors, but like it was a really, really good buildup of 3 stories that concluded very well. And obviously it's a series.
Of course.
I forgot I had that on the sound bank.
But it wraps up very nicely. And then like we get obviously you get Cyberzilla, in which we finish off Cyberzilla, and obviously the Zilla Jr. triumphs over everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good wrapped up solid story. Little hiccups here and there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are some little hiccups. It's not entirely perfect, but like I said, I remember when it was airing, the hype train was real when that was going on, and it was getting advertised everywhere. This show really was what Godzilla 98 should have been.
Yeah.
It really was. And you know, I can tell you right now, having talked with the guys and gals from Heat, they said like, yeah, they got it pretty right. It was nuts when that went on. So
Roland Emmerich tried, but he made his typical movie.
Yes.
He did. Honestly, Emmerich and Devlin probably peaked early with Independence Day.
I like a couple of their stuff after this, but I mean, I like it because it's the same type of stupid end of the world plots over and over again. I find some enjoyment in the craziness.
Some of Emmerich's early films, like
Stargate.
Yeah, Stargate. That was an interesting film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've said this on both of the other episodes on this show, but go figure. Much like with Stargate, they make a TV sequel, and the TV show is better.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, because SG-1 is pretty good.
I mean, what 7-8 seasons can't be wrong.
No.
10. I couldn't remember.
10 seasons and 3 films,
and like 2 spinoff shows.
Yeah, 2 spinoff shows. Yeah, it's a franchise. It's quite the franchise. But speaking of Stargate,
did better than Firefly.
Oh man, ooh, too soon. Hashtag too soon. My producer agrees with me. But anyway, speaking of Stargate, that transition will make sense here in a second, because I did want to talk a bit about Godzilla 2, the unmade sequel. I have to give special thanks to Kaiju Masterclass on YouTube and John LeMay, my friend John LeMay, for in his Lost Films book. This is where I got most of this information.
Mm-hmm.
Because Kaiju Masterclass actually interviewed the screenwriter Tab Murphy, who got connected with Emmerich and Devlin because of Stargate. There you go.
Cool.
Yeah. He became acquainted with them because one of the producers on Stargate was a producer in a film he directed in the early 90s called Last of the Dogmen. So he got invited to the set.
There's a joke there.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to make it.
But he got invited to the set of Stargate and got to hang out with everybody. So like I said, TriStar wanted to make a trilogy of these movies. They were willing to go along with making the first sequel because despite the critical lambasting that the first movie got, it was actually profitable.
Yeah.
It was strangely profitable. And they said, if it makes $400 million, we'll make the sequel. It did make that much. Mm-hmm. Now, Tab Murphy's Oscar nominated. He was nominated for Gorillas in the Mist. And here's a connection for you two in particular. He worked on a lot of Disney movies in the 90s, like Hunchback of Notre Dame and Hercules and Atlantis, the Lost Empire, just to name a few.
All films we reviewed so far.
Well, no, we haven't reviewed Hunchback yet.
That's right. We haven't reviewed.
You haven't? Oh my gosh.
It's just not one we've gotten to yet.
Yeah, we'll get there when we get there.
Okay. And Murphy said that he was a Godzilla fan growing up. So we got a guy who knows what, who's talented and he's a fan. He was really excited about working on this.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that Emmerich and Devlin gave him a lot of freedom, and he was hoping to make the sequel more of a traditional Godzilla story while maintaining the tone of the original, and he wanted to bring more heart and emotion into the story, which once I give you some of the bullet points of what his story what the story of the sequel would have been, that will make sense here.
Okay.
And he's an outdoorsy guy, so he was going to set the movie primarily in the Australian outback. There's a lot of similarities between the show and this, to the point where when he was being interviewed on Kaiju Masterclass, they asked him, "Did you ever work with the guys from the animated series?" He said, "Nope." But it's not just the animated series. There's cross-pollination with some of the stuff that Toho did later.
Yeah.
It's kind of nutty. And he said that basically the theme of his script, if it had gotten made, would have been, do these mutations have a right to exist? So
That's the plot of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom.
Yeah.
More connections. But yeah, anyway, here's a quick little rundown of his script, his story treatment. By the way, the script that he wrote did leak online in the early 2000s, and the people who read it actually liked it. So that should tell you something. The Godzilla fans who hated that first movie, they read his sequel and they're like, actually, we like this. Why didn't you make it? Please. Anyway, so it starts with immediately after the first movie, Nick Totopoulos goes to a lab where Daddy Zilla is being dissected, and he feels sorry for the thing. He feels tremendous empathy for it, especially, he said, and Murphy said this is especially emphasized where in a scene where Zilla's eyeball is getting sliced, and Nick thinks back to how just a short time before this that eye was full of life. And then he leaves because he just can't stand watching it. And then he goes down into the New York sewers to see if he can find a baby Zilla. And he does. He finds the one baby Zilla that survived from the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And just like in the show, he finds baby Zilla and it imprints on him. But here's where it does diverge. In a scene that I have
seen in the movies.
Huh?
But the better imprinting I've seen in recent years.
Well,
the less said about Twilight, the better.
Yes.
Well, this is followed by a scene that I have to think probably would have given people like us flashbacks to the Ninja Turtles movie. But Nick gets an overcoat and throws it onto the baby Zilla and leads him away to the waterfront to get him to swim away before the soldiers arrive.
Does he feed him pepperoni pizza on the way?
No, he buys a bunch of fish from a fish market.
Anchovies, gotcha.
Yeah.
Murphy said it was a tough love moment because he had to make him swim away. Then it jumps ahead 2 years, and Nick is about to marry, or I think he just married Audrey, the reporter.
Yes.
Good for him.
Well, one of the things that he was told to do is get rid of Audrey because nobody liked her in the movie.
I thought she was fine. It was the other two people running around with her I didn't like.
Well, Maria Patillo was not well liked. So they told us, like, get rid of her. So basically what happens is on his wedding day, Nick gets into a limo. I guess he's having second thoughts about the whole thing. And then the limo basically drives away and kidnaps him. It turns out the limo driver is Philippe Roche.
Yeah.
So we would have gotten Jean Reno back, and Jean Reno was the best thing in that movie.
Yes, agreed.
And he tells him he's got a new mission, and they go to the outback and they meet a woman named Anna Charlton, who Tab Murphy described as being like Diane Fossey.
Okay.
Again, Gorillas in the Mist.
Yes.
And you find out that she's been hiding the baby Zilla, who's now grown up, so I guess Junior, and she whatever has made a new nest with more babies.
Of course.
So Rose tries to call Hicks to have them all destroyed. And the other thing that's going on is there are a bunch of weird disasters that have been happening where people are disappearing, even though they should be finding lots of bodies. And Roche thinks that Zilla Jr. is responsible for that. So there's some character tension going on there. So interestingly, there is a scene in this script where Zilla Jr. dives into water and you see flashes of light in the water, which is a foreshadowing of him actually having atomic breath that gets revealed in the final fight. Because a bunch of fish float up to the surface, and then he takes the fish over to give to the babies in the nest, firmly establishing that Zilla is not the one responsible for all of the disasters. Then the characters go to a monster island where the French nuclear test that originally mutated Zilla Jr., well, the original Zilla, took place.
Mm-hmm.
And they find the real culprit, a giant
Alien?
insect that is a combination of a winged termite and a wasp, which is funny because there was a giant bee in this show.
But
And the bee was in Monster Wars.
Yeah. But this sounds like it's like we can't use Mothra, but we're going to get as close as possible.
It's more like Megaguirus, but before Megaguirus, I'll come back to that. Yeah, Jimmy. I don't know if I can actually say what the thing's official name is without being censored. Can you grant me an exception? Okay. Cover your ears, fellas, if in case you need to. But the name given by our heroes for this monster is Queen Bitch.
I don't. Yeah, okay, maybe
Work with it.
And my thought was
better if it's a dog kaiju, but sure.
I disagree, Jimmy. That one was funny.
Maybe a bulldog.
There.
Maybe a bulldog.
Yeah.
So it's got kind of the British connection.
Yeah. My first thought was, how would we market that to kids with the toys? What they probably would have done is just shorten it to Queen Bee.
Yeah.
Just put the what they call it. I nearly said Skrillex. That's not what it's called. The Growlix. The Growlix symbols in there. That's all you need. Queen asterisk at sign pound sign exclamation point.
Queen Bleep.
Yes, Queen Bleep. Yes, that's actually what you call her.
Queen Bleep.
Queen Bleep.
Queen Bleep. I need this now.
You get so
I need a super villainous named Queen Bleep. Oh God, I probably am giving the Church of Mothrianity ideas.
Oh, please don't.
Oh no,
They're
Jessica, I'm sorry. Oh.
Do you realize I had to fight them off with a stick last year because of all that goop that I when we fell on the egg? I didn't have any of it left on because I got it all washed off while I was at Monster Island, but they were convinced there was something.
Oh, good Lord.
With a stick.
They might come after you because the goop made some weird alterations to your genetic code or something, and then they'll mutate you into a Mothman.
No.
Okay. Anyway.
I got all that took care of while I was on the island. So.
Yeah, thank God.
There have been no side
or thank Godzilla? I don't know. But anyway, it turns out, as you probably would have guessed, the Queen Bleep, we'll call her the Queen Bleep, is the one who's responsible for all of the disasters.
Of course.
Surprise, surprise.
Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, this all culminates with the big monster fights. But before we get to there, the military shows up and actually destroys the nest, and everyone in the nest except for the parent and one of the babies that in the treatment and script is called the runt. They're the only ones who survive.
Let's just call him Nilla for now.
Yeah, actually, you could argue that it's Manila. And then
it can't be Manila because they wouldn't let him use that. He's just Nilla.
True. But then Queen Bleep goes to Sydney, captures Anna, seemingly kills the runt, Manila, whatever you want to call him, and then takes Anna to the island. And then Nick and our heroes go over there. They save Anna, and there's a bunch of captured humans that are in an underground nest that the Queen Bleep hasn't fed to her horde of ugly, ugly babies. By the way, there was an egg also in Sydney, and in a bit of a turnabout. Turnabout is fair play. When the Queen Bleep kills the runt, the enraged Zilla Jr. torches her egg.
I mean, it could have been worse, but okay.
Right.
But anyway, turns out the runt's not dead because he does show up at the last second with Junior, and they save everybody and they defeat the Queen Bleep. And then this would have been cool to see when the military shows up to kill both Dadzilla and the runt. The humans that they rescued all form a line around them to bar the military from hurting them.
Ah,
that's cool.
Mm-hmm. And then it's Hicks, actually. They oblige and leave them alone.
Hicks is a good guy deep down.
Yeah. So Murphy said that one of the reasons he did this is because he wanted to make Zilla empathetic. And he says, how do you do that? You make him a parent.
Well, and this makes sense. In the last, in the first movie, Godzilla was a villain. Now you make him the hero, just like in the Showa era.
And because he said he's the father of 5, and he had 5 kids running around, so it's like, oh, I'll give Zilla some kids.
I can go with that.
Why not? There is a scene that's very Jurassic Park-esque because there's a point where there's a Zilla stampede, and the characters are riding in a Jeep, and then Anna shows up and saves all of them.
Nice,
cool.
John outlined this in his book. This is my favorite of the ones. He said there's some interesting attempts at humor that John thinks was better than what was in the first movie, and I would tend to agree. The one that he mentioned that I thought was pretty funny was early on when we first see the baby Zilla in the overcoat. There's a point where there's an old bum who begs him for money, and then the baby Zilla almost bites his hand.
That's hilarious.
Now, he said the monster island in this is more like Jules Verne's Mysterious Island as opposed to actual Monster Island, which I can vouch for.
Right.
And he said the giant egg is that I mentioned in Sydney. It was in a greenhouse enclosure. Potential homage to Mothra versus Godzilla.
Yeah.
And the scene where Zilla Jr. incinerates a horde of insects, he's like, oh, it's kind of like Godzilla versus Megaguirus. Did you read the script, Toho? Just saying.
And Toho can sometimes be a bunch of old fuddy-duddies.
Yeah. What's funny is that here's another connection for you. It's like, Toho, did you read the script? Have you guys seen Final Wars?
I haven't watched it yet.
Not yet.
Zilla shows up in that.
I'm aware. I've
Sydney.
seen the scene. I've seen that particular scene.
Yeah, but like I said, it's in Sydney.
Yeah.
And Sydney factors pretty a lot into in this unmade sequel.
Subtle.
Saying.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very,
now you might
very
be
subtle.
Now, if you're wondering why this didn't get made, because this actually sounds pretty cool. I think this would have been a great movie. Oh, and the other thing I should mention is we find out by the end of the movie that Audrey annulled her marriage with Nick. And he's like, oh, that's fine. I'll get with Anna now. Because apparently there was a lot of sexual tension between them the entire movie.
Right.
But you might be wondering, why didn't this get made? No one really knows. Could have been because the budget that they would have needed to make this as it was would have been too high, especially with the poor reception that the first movie got.
Especially at that era.
Yep. It also could have
would not be quite good enough yet.
It also, John theorizes, could have been because of the underperformance of Godzilla 2000 in U.S. theaters. So, no, like I said, no one really knows for sure. But what do you think? Like I said, there's a lot of similarities with the show.
I agree. Sounds like it would have been a great sequel if we'd have gotten it.
Yeah, it sounds like an interesting concept for a film.
And it does make sense that perhaps they took some of those ideas and just reworked them into the show later.
Yeah, but no, even Tab Murphy wasn't sure if it was just cross-pollination or if they read the script, or because he said he never worked with any of these people. And the show was in production a year before the first movie came out.
It could have just been
coincidence.
That would have definitely, though, if they had made that sequel, it would have made this show completely non-canon.
Yeah. I don't know how to feel about that, but I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that something like that's happened. I mean, you had the real Ghostbusters in the 80s, but then they made a Ghostbusters 2. The show was still on.
Yeah, but that was standard at the time with these Saturday morning cartoons anyway. They were just made to get kids excited to watch the show, and then sometime later on they'd make another movie that may have had some callbacks, but they're going to do their own thing.
Yeah.
Right. But anyway, like I said, I would have liked to have seen this. It's unfortunate that it didn't get made, but I mean, at least we got the show out of it. And I still have, like, doing the math, I still have about 31 episodes to go.
Right.
with any future coverage of it. But like I said, we just talked about the 3 best episodes. We really did. This is the show at its best.
I agree. Of what I've watched.
Yeah.
I'll admit, I still have not finished the show.
Which is cool, man. Take your time. Take your time.
I got too many shows to watch right now as it is.
I feel your pain. There are reasons why I'm cutting back on the number of podcasts I'm doing.
Which is very fair.
Well, that was certainly fun, fellas. I'm glad that I could have had you back on, although now I may have gotten you kind of pigeonholed. I guess whenever I talk about the show, I have to have you back on now, barring like Patreon-sponsored episodes for this show.
You never know. Some other cartoon kaiju thing might come up.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few animes that are coming up now.
Yeah.
So it's possible.
Few other tokusatsu I'd gladly come on an episode for.
Well, you guys are patrons, so you get to pick stuff.
Yeah, think about that. Actually, I don't think we're quite that high on the regular.
Yeah, I will be opening up Patreon slots in the next couple of months. So for next year,
I will keep an eye out and up my pledge when necessary.
Well, you won't have to, because Damon Noyes he's basically a producer on this show now, because he won't lower his pledge. So he's basically just created a scholarship for everybody.
Oh, well, there you go.
But I won't stop you if you want to upgrade.
Oh, I'm sure you'd accept more money.
Of course.
We all would.
Yeah. Yes, Jimmy. Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money. There's a sequel I want.
Although that's actually an interesting question considering your Patreon. Do you get that money or does the board get that money?
Yeah.
Oh, I get that money, sir.
Okay. I was just curious.
Okay.
I didn't know how mad the board was ripping you off.
No. Trust me. I get that money. I know a very good lawyer. He makes sure that they get not a cent.
Well, that works for me.
Yep.
Yeah, indeed. But now, gentlemen, it's time it's now time for a segment of the show where you get to shout yourselves out.
Danny Damana!
Bex from Redeemed Otaku!
Damon Noise! The Cel Cast!
Eric Anderson!
Ted Williams!
Winja the Ninja!
Brad Batman Edmund.
Christopher Reiner!
The Indiscreet One.
Jake Hambrick! Edwin Gonzalez! Matt Walsh! But not that Matt Walsh. Jonathan Cartwright! Robert Kidd! Leon Campbell!
Tofu
Oh, I don't know if we need a Kamehameha or an atomic breath at this point.
Either way.
Either way. Well, you and your fellow patrons have been thoroughly shouted out. Thank you guys once again for everyone who contributes. If you would like to join MIFV Max and get shout outs like this, starting at just $3 a month, check out MIFV on Patreon, and you can find all kinds of other great perks on there, like blooper audio and behind the scenes stuff, like uncut recordings and things like that. And scripts and all kinds of fun stuff. And if you want to get really crazy, you can sponsor episodes like these gentlemen.
Except ironically, this was not a sponsor for one.
No, but you guys have a sponsored episode coming up soon.
Yes.
That is actually going to be combining some of our favorite things all into one. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. But speaking of upcoming episodes, I do need to mention to everybody what we'll be covering in the next month. Actually, before we get back to more of the world tour, you're going to get another impromptu episode, this time over the 1962 semi-obscure Daiei classic, The Whale God, which may as well be the prototype for all of their kaiju films to come. And I will be joined not just by Daniel Damana, as I mentioned in the previous episode, but also by host of Kaiju Conversation and at points my friendly rival, frenemy, not quite sure, the littlest gatekeeper himself, Elijah Thomas. Anyway, back to the show. First off, as I mentioned, we're in Seoul, South Korea, and as part of the Monster Island World Tour, Jimmy and I will be talking about arguably South Korea's most famous monster, Yongari, Monster from the Deep from 1967. And my guest will be Kaiju author, G-Fest staple, friend of the podcast, and the most hardcore fan of this film that I know, Neil Reeby. Look forward to it. And then we get to our first Patreon-sponsored episode of Season 4. Not from these gentlemen, no. From my, basically, I don't know if he's an executive producer or whatever. I mean, I already got a producer. His name is Jimmy. So I don't know where exactly he fits in with all of this. But Damon Noyes will get the first Patreon-sponsored episode, like I said, of the season. And it's going to be a double feature. Tell me if you can detect the theme of this double feature.
Okay.
From, I believe it, I could be wrong, Jimmy, you may need to correct me in your blog, but we'll be looking at two movies, one from 1957 and one from 1980, Attack of the Crab Monsters and Island Claws.
Beach movies.
Sounds like a beach movie.
Yeah, that's one commonality. Also,
yeah, it does sound a bit crabby.
Yeah. Yeah, I had never heard of Island Claws until he told me. And he claims, even though I can't find any information to confirm this, although I can't find much information on this movie, period, he claims it's a remake of the first one, Attack of the Crab Monsters.
I'll take your word for it. I ain't heard of either one.
Yeah, I have seen clips of Island Claws, and it looks like thorough early 80s schlock.
So you're saying it ain't going to be no Ebora, how do you say it? Horror
Ebora.
Ebora. I've just, it's not going to be any Ebora Horror of the Deep is what you're telling me.
Nope. I think Ebora could probably beat the monsters in this movie. But but Damon has also promised me that he's got a very strange, quote unquote, toku topic to bring up for this one. Apparently, he says that there's some theory out there that insists that evolution is trying to turn everything into crabs.
I've heard this theory. I don't believe it, but yes.
Yeah, so it should be interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
What's funny is I found out that there is a Blu-ray special edition of Attack of the Crab Monsters, and it actually had some special features in it that made the scholar in me very happy. Problem is that there were only 1,000 of them ever printed by Shout Factory, so it's long out of print, and now most people want minimum $100 for it.
That's a shame.
And I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
All kinds of nope.
But yeah, that theory about everyone's evolution turning everything to crabs, that's just a theory. A crab theory. Thanks for watching.
Snap. Oh, snap. I think Jimmy's a little worried over there. He doesn't know what to do. He's like, I want to hit the button and say something, but he's got nothing. He's got nothing. But
I just wanted to make that joke before your Patreon guest had a chance.
I don't know if he'll make the joke or not.
I don't know if he will or not. It's just
I don't know if he will. I don't know if he will or not. So you'll have to tune in to find out. But before you guys get thoroughly canceled, you should do some shameless self-promotion.
You can find me on Facebook at Jacob B. Heron. Also, you can find me on Facebook at Jacob's Daily Art Corner, where I try to draw every day. You can find me on Instagram at Jacob Heron. You can find me on Twitter at Jacob Heron.
You can find me on Facebook at Drew Dodgen, and of course other social media stuff. Of course, go check out Henshin because I was on that for 5 episodes. And yeah, other than that, we got the Cel Cast, which is our show review animated movies and television shows. And then, of course, you can also follow me over at the Cel Cast Presents Untangling Kingdom Hearts, where I review Kingdom Hearts one little bit at a time. And I have another script in the bag. I need to record it.
Lore master.
Paying way too close attention is what it is.
So is okay. Nitpicker.
The thing is, Kingdom Hearts is one of those things that is understandably complex in the same way the MCU right now is complex.
Same way everything is complex.
Right.
True.
It sounds far more confusing to say it than to actually just accept it.
This is true. This is true. But anyway, it was a delight as always to have you guys on. But you know what? I'm sure Deela doesn't have to teleport you back immediately. And I was thinking, you guys, we should hang out tonight, have a little bit of fun. Have you ever heard of a theme park called Yangmaland?
I think I saw a YouTuber tour that on YouTube.
Yes, it's a bit of a famous attraction here in South Korea, from what I understand. It's an abandoned theme park, and it's purported to be haunted.
Haunted?
Jinkies.
Oh no, not Ricky's. No.
Yeah, so I say we go have a little bit of fun and we see if it really is haunted or not. What do you say?
Yeah, sounds like fun.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Deela, can you give us a couple hours? Thank you.
Well, there you go. And then, Deela, Jimmy, and Kaguya can hang out and keep an eye on Uber Mogura while we go do it. Good idea. If we're not back by the morning, send a search party.
Yeah.
That's not disconcerting.
No. Oh boy.
We'll be fine. I'm sure we'll be fine. We've all seen Ghostbusters, right?
Don't cross the streams. It's about what I know. Also, if we get asked if we're God, say yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Always say yes. Even if it's a lie.
Yes.
Bad things happen if you don't.
Jacob, if this happens, please do not turn into a dog.
No promises.
Because I don't want to deal with the gatekeeper or the keymaster.
Yeah. I'll try not to if Deela doesn't do anything this time.
Now I'm worried that he might be a secret lichen.
Deela makes no promises.
Oh,
exactly.
Good. Oh, good Lord. Jimmy, keep the AI in check. Sure, do your best. Okay. Anyway, it's time for us to wrap things up here. So, Jimmy, cue the credits. Thank you for listening to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast produced and hosted by Nate Marchand. Our executive producer is Damon Noyes. If you want to be heard on the show, we'd love to hear from you, so email us at monsterislandfilmvault@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. You can also follow Jimmy from NASA on Twitter and our many colorful characters using the links in the show notes, which are on our website, monsterislandfilmvault.com. Don't forget to join our official Facebook group and Discord server, The Markalite Lounge. Our podcast logo was designed by Rebecca Hudgens. Follow her on Twitter and Instagram at super_R_illustrations. Sound effects sourced from freesound.org and created by JP Gant. Our theme song is Wanderer on the Offensive, live edit by B33J, Sarax, Juan Madrono, and Nonsensical Lexus, which is a remix of Counterattack and The Opened Way by Kowatani from Shadow of the Colossus. Additional music includes Every Country Has a Monster, performed by Jonah Ray, and Chant My Name, a cover by Second Archive of the song by Masaki Endo. All film and audio clips belong to their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended or implied. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and/or Podchaser to spread the word about the show. You can even support us by joining MIFV Max on Patreon. MIFV is a Moonlighting Ninjas media production and a proud member of Pod Nation. Sayonara!